Hello, everyone. This is another edition of Userlist Live. Today, I'm joined by Adam. You can't see him because for some reason that camera window isn't picked up by the live streaming software, but he's there. Maybe you can say hi.
Hello.
Hopefully, people can hear you. Yeah, it looks like it's picking up the sound. If not, please let me know in the chat. And yeah, I think we talked about doing some pair programming quite a while ago, and yeah, I was on vacation for the last couple of weeks. Well, not all of them, but had 2 weeks off, and it took me a while to get back into work mode. So now here we are, and I think I found a good small problem for us to work on. So I already mentioned it a little bit to you in the chat, but here's the problem that we're having, or that I'm facing right now. We are about to launch our marketing feature, which will remove a constraint from our API. So right now, when our customers send data over, they are required to send a user identifier. And with the marketing feature, we don't need that anymore. They can either send an identifier or an email address or both. So the problem now is that right now we have a couple of customers, and I have no idea who's explicitly relying on that validation to not accept certain requests to the API. So I want to find a way to basically identify those accounts. Ideally, it's no one, but if someone's using, like, explicitly relying on that feature or that validation to fail, I'd like to catch it early so we can tell them, hey, this is an upcoming change, and if you don't want to track those users without identifiers, then you should change something in your implementation. Yeah,
do you have
questions?
a thought on how you'll know who's? I mean, obviously you can know who's using those endpoints, but how will you know who's relying on the current validation logic?
So yeah, that's the thing. So our push API has a tiny model layer on top of it, which isn't really backed by a database, but it's used for doing the validation, accepting data, normalizing data, and all of that. And in here, I have like 2 validations set up. And basically what I think we have to do is hook into, well, let me think about it. Either hook into a callback, but I don't think we have callbacks in this just yet, or just redefine the valid method and check that there isn't an error on the identifier field or something like that. And if that's the case, like if there is an error, then we have to kind of mark the account that this request belongs to as using that particular feature.
Oh, I see. So that'll tell you who is using the API and is encountering those validation errors, then kind of assuming that they're doing that intentionally and using that in some way, that you don't want to break that expectation because you know that they're currently encountering those validation errors.
Yeah. I mean, they might or might not be doing this on purpose, but regardless, those requests will suddenly start to not fail anymore, and they might be adding a couple thousand users to their user list account and potentially sending them messages that aren't intended. So right. I want to catch this early.
So are you thinking once you identify those users, if it's a small number of users, you maybe just reach out to them directly to see how they're using it and if this is going to affect them? Or are you thinking you'll actually want to put some exceptions in the logic for that particular usage?
Ideally, as I said, ideally no one's relying on that, but I mean, that's exactly the thing we want to find out. If it's just a small number, then I'll probably just reach out to each and every one of them individually and talk to them about the problem and hopefully get them to fix it. Or if it's a larger number, then I think we have to come up with a setting somewhere that explicitly toggles this feature on or off. So
obviously not the ideal case, but cross that bridge when you get there.
We don't really want to have a toggle for that, but maybe that's something we need at least for a while until everyone's flipped over. And I mean, admittedly, we already have a toggle in there because right now it's feature flagged. So it's not that hard to add this toggle in there, but yeah, I don't know. I'd rather not have this as setting in the UI, but just make it the default behavior.
For sure, yeah.
So the other thing. Well, yeah, that's the problem we want to solve. For the solution itself, it has to be rather fast because that API endpoint gets hammered a lot, like a lot. So it has to be super fast. It shouldn't put unnecessary load on the system. So I don't know, the naive implementation would probably be just updating a column on the account table. Whenever that validation error is occurs, but that's not an option because that is way too much write load on the database. Ideally, I don't want to write it once it's written, like just have it as a flag. So, yeah, as I said, just not make it. Not put unnecessary strains on things, and it should be relatively easy to query so I can get a list of all the customers affected. While I was explaining the problem, I'm not entirely sure about that requirement anymore because maybe it's interesting to even count how often that happens, because if they're just integrating and just trying it out, they might encounter a validation error once or twice. But yeah, like if it's happening daily or something like that, then it's probably a problem. And yeah, it should be relatively easy to query. I was thinking if this might be a good use case for something in Redis. So we basically have, I don't know, a set or something in there where we just put account IDs in there if they're using a certain feature. But it's just a thought.
Redis is really the first thing that popped into my mind as well. I mean, obviously, so yeah, if it needs to be stored somewhere that's shared, which pretty much means in your Postgres database or in Redis, like, 'cause those are the only two data stores you're currently using, right?
Yeah.
Without having to introduce a third.
Yeah, we don't want to introduce a third. Well, maybe we want to introduce a third, and potentially, like, if we take this thing that we're probably building and think a little bit past that specific use case, it might be interesting to use that to track feature users across the entire app, at least from the API side. For example, which integrations are people using? So it might be interesting to forward that information in Userlist, but yeah, I mean, that's already advanced use case, I guess. Not sure we cover that today.
Yeah, I mean, I think Redis has a lot of things going for it. I mean, it's going to be fast. It's not going to add load to your Postgres database. You can add some convenience methods in your models to make it easy to query. And it also, I mean, especially if you want to like track a counter.
I think we lost Adam there, or my internet connection is just breaking down. Stream is still going, so I guess it's just a tuple connection that broke. Let's see. Welcome
Sorry
back.
about that.
Not sure what happened there. Might be related to the live stream.
No, I think it looked like it crashed on my side, but
Oh, interesting. Well, anyways.
back in it now. Yeah.
So-
Anyway, I don't know when I got cut off, but I was saying Redis has an incr by command to just increment the value of a key if you wanted to keep a counter.
Yeah, that might be a good idea. Yeah, I'm wondering if it's too much load on Redis. But we probably have to check Redis anyways, because we have to, well, either increment, which is just one operation, or check that it's already stored in there. So maybe incrementing isn't the worst of ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and the nice thing, if it's a single atomic operation, so you don't have to like check if it exists. If you just do,
Yeah.
if you increment a key that doesn't exist, it'll just increment it to 1.
Redis Co is the website or something like that, if I remember correctly. No, it's not.
Redis.io.
Redis.io.
Can you share your screen with me again?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
No worries.
So you're thinking this one?
Yeah, or actually, since you're just going to go one at a time, there's also incr, which is basically incr by using 1.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Just while searching, there was maybe h incr by or is there? No, that's just this one. Maybe this is a good idea because in the end we get a set.
Do you think are you going to want to query multiple users at once? Is that why maybe a set would be useful?
Yeah, that's my thinking, that this would probably allow me if I could do H keys and get all the IDs of accounts back that are using a particular feature.
I guess maybe just take a step back and think about how you want to query this data once, like in a perfect world, you're capturing whatever you want to capture. What's the end result in terms of querying it look like?
I think for now, just having a way to manually query it is probably good enough. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think I will ever need that information in Postgres.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking like what questions might you ask of the data? Like what users are or I guess maybe based on what we've talked about, maybe it's just a list of all the users who have encountered this validation error, maybe sorted by count, and you can see all the counts, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that would be useful. I'm thinking that, I mean, now we're getting into way too complicated territory of like, maybe it would be interesting to also know the frequency that they're encountering this problem. But I think that's something for another live stream.
Yeah. I guess I mean, you could always start with the simplest thing, and if you find that it's the data that you're getting from it isn't quite enough to make a decision on, then you could iterate on that.
Okay. So I think we agree. Redis, H incr by or whatever it's called, and that's the way to go for now. So, wondering how this would look like. Probably. something like this, and then have not a hard part. What do we name this thing?
The thing that thing that's tracking the usage. Yeah.
Something like this. Basically, just we create a new class that does this stuff, and then just add a track method that gets the account, and it can handle whatever we want to do.
Yeah, I think that could work great.
I don't like the name, but I mean, names can change, so. Oops. Let's see how well testing works with this. I mean, testing works, but now we're live streaming and doing the pair programming call. That's, like, running one test might take a while. By the way, are you an RSpec guy or a Minitest guy?
Both. Am I allowed to say both? I'm traditionally an RSpec guy who's trying to go back to Minitest.
Why is that?
Because it does less, and I like that it does less.
Fair point, yeah.
And I guess I'm trying to get in the habit of using the vanilla Rails stack until I have a good reason to change. And honestly, the more I thought about it, I didn't have good reasons to use RSpec over Minitest.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I guess we want to do something like that. This is kind of stupid, but whatever.
Yeah, make sure that things are wired up.
And I can already see how it's super slow. I'm typing and the characters aren't showing up.
Uh-oh. Minor detail to be able to see the characters you're typing.
Barry, can you see everything on my screen well enough? So I tried to increase font size and stuff before the call, so it should be relatively easy.
Yep, it's perfect for me.
Okay, great.
So looks like
it's not working. Oh, we need to.
Well, the test is working, right? Because we haven't created the. Or did you actually create the model?
The class is there, but I just realized I have to include Rails helper instead of spec helper. Yeah. Okay. It's super slow, but yeah. And now that we're using Rails helper, it's initializing Rails, so it's even slower. Okay. Yeah. Nice. So it's complaining that their initializer isn't there yet. So. By the way, how do we want to do this? Do we want to take turns or? I have no idea how well this works when you drive this while everything's super slow.
Yeah. Typo in initialize.
Oh, good catch.
That'll be my job. I'll be your spell checker.
Very good. So this should be enough to make the test pass, right?
Yeah.
We are now in 5 minutes.
One thing we could try, if you wanted, just to make this fun, is one of us writes the tests, the other one writes the implementation.
Oh, I like this. Which part do you want to do?
I'll write the tests.
Okay. There you go.
Obviously, we'll still collaborate on all of them. Okay. Let's see if I can type here. Let's see. I'm currently in keyboard disabled mode. Let's see. Oh man, that was like a 3-second delay. I don't think I'm going to be able to type.
I'm sorry. This isn't well thought through.
That's all right. That's all right. We'll still collaborate, even though I can't type. But yeah, you'll have to do all the driving.
Let's maybe wait a moment until the tests are done. Maybe typing is better now.
Okay. Whoop.
It looks snappier than before.
Let's see. It exists. That's good. We want it to. Okay, so here's a question. So the usage tracker is probably going to have some query methods on it. This is always a question when testing, like we're testing the track method here, but to test the track method, we kind of have to assert that it tracked what we wanted to track. Do we do that by exercising the query methods or by hitting Redis directly? Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, that's always a good question. And in this particular case, I don't know. I think we can just check Redis. In a way, it's an implementation detail in this particular case, but this thing doesn't do anything else but store stuff in Redis. So I guess it's okay to test that boundary.
We'll start there. Okay, so all right, we need an account.
Reconsidering right now. Maybe one way we could approach this is, let's do it like this. Let's also add one of the query methods and make sure that the account is returned from the query methods, because this way we can just implement it in memory for now. And then we add another test that makes sure that 2 instances of the feature tracker share the same state.
Ooh, I like that.
At that point, we can go into Redis.
Cool. Yeah, I like that. Cool. So here we would we'll need a query method. So
maybe something like users question mark.
So one thought, this usage tracker, it takes a feature name and the track method takes an account, but I guess one question is, does it actually care what the account is, or is it just maybe an object that responds to ID? I guess one thing is, how coupled do we want this usage tracker to be to users and accounts, or is it more just sort of arbitrary tracking?
That's a good point.
We could go like super arbitrary right now and just be like subject.usage. And it just returns all of the things that were tracked along with the counts of the number of times that they were tracked.
Yeah, I like the idea of I like the idea of not relying on the type, so we can indeed track accounts, users, whatever.
Yeah, let's just say counts. Okay. So result is it's either going to be a hash or an array of arrays, I guess. Let's go with hash. That way you could actually then drill into a specific user if you wanted.
Yeah.
Whoop.
Don't worry about the typos. If it's easier, I can fix them after the fact.
We'll get there. Let's say, I don't know, when making assertions on a hash, I always feel like it's easier, especially if it's small hash like this, to just like assert the keys and assert the values, rather than, because if I did like result bracket the account ID or whatever, knowing that that's nil, it doesn't actually tell us what's in the hash itself. So then it doesn't quite give us as much information to fix the failure with, if that makes sense. Anyway, if it doesn't, maybe it'll make sense after I write it. All right, so I'm envisioning this counts returns a hash of the account IDs or account names, whatever identifier we decide to use for the thing that we're tracking. Those are the keys, and then the values are the actual counts. So for now, I'll just say account ID, and we can talk about whether or not it makes sense to track based on ID. I guess we could have also just asserted the equality of the entire hash. I don't know. Hashes are hard to test, I feel like. Okay, does this make sense? We want it to be a hash. We want to have account ID is the only key, and the value should be 1. That should be 1 because we tracked something.
I think it should be array 1, right? Because you get multiple values.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
All right, we need an account.
Let me do that part really quick.
Yeah.
Okay, Yeah.
Yeah. Is that actually going to create an account in memory or just in the database?
This will create one in the database, which is overkill for that particular test. But if we just build one, it doesn't have an ID, and well, let's not worry about that for now.
That sounds good. Okay, we should run this, and it should say counts doesn't exist, I would hope. Where are we here? I haven't saved yet, and that's why.
I just saved it. It's already trying to run, but as I said, it's super slow.
Okay, cool. Well,
and the linter is timing out as well. Oh, this is going great.
It's all right. It's all right. We got the expected failure that counts doesn't exist. So now it's your turn.
Nice. Okay. How stupid do you want me to fix this? How challenging do we want to make this? Because obviously the correct solution is
yeah, no, let's start there. This is our first time pairing together, so we got to make it fun.
It's passing. Oh, do we want to?
Yeah.
I have a feeling the tests will probably be more code than the implementation, at least for a little while. What about if I write the next test and we flip that way?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I feel like you're typing way more than I am over the less than ideal connection. So it increments. So what about this?
Yeah, it looks good. And honestly, yeah, that's so much easier to read than what I did up here. I would refactor that.
Yeah, let me quickly change that, and then you can take over. Good old hash rocket.
All right. Well, while that test is running, I'm gonna go ahead and bounce over here because we can be kind of confident that it's gonna fail.
Yep.
Okay. So if we're just gonna track something in memory, I'm just gonna go ahead and initialize a hash of counts. Let's call it counts. Oops, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do it here. Yeah, and I don't think for right now, I don't think we even need to keep this in an instance variable. We're not testing for that anywhere. Actually, no, because it's not even a
good
public.
idea.
Yeah, it's not an outer reader. Okay. And I'm going to have, instead of just a regular old hash, let's so this any key that hasn't been defined yet will have a default value of 0. We'll increment it by 1, and then just throw an add a reader for counts in here. Do you think it's going to pass?
Looks good to me.
Okay.
Yes, nice.
Do you want to keep writing tests?
Sure. It's probably faster that way, right? I mean, the other way is you write the next test and so on, but I don't care.
Yeah, I'll let you keep going with the tests.
Okay. I'm worrying if it's the right time to just go ahead and test that it's working with 2 different instances. Because honestly, I can't think of anything useful other than that right now.
I agree. And I personally don't have a problem like using, exercising the counts method here. Obviously, like our describe block is called describe track, but we're really testing both track and counts. So it's a little bit misleading, but
yeah, I mean, but that's just how it is,
like
right?
It feels like a very logical way to test, but I mean, the two methods work together.
Yeah, exactly. So should be okay. It really feels like programming blind.
Yeah, you need described class on line 31.
Oh yeah, there. Yeah. That should do the trick, right? Yeah, I think that should work.
Yeah. Are you already using Redis like outside of Sidekick in Userlist?
Yeah, you can just do Redis new and get a connection to Redis.
Okay. Yeah, okay, let's do that. One thing, like before, at some point, I want to chat about if you're doing any like connection pooling for your Redis, for your like Redis connections like this. But we definitely don't need that right now. But I would probably want to chat about that before you go to production with it.
Yeah, that's
just so
a good
you don't
point.
end up creating like a whole bunch of one-off Redis connections. But yeah,
that's a very good point. Yeah, let's keep. I write down a note somewhere.
I'll put a to do in here as well. But all right, count is no longer going to be an in-memory hash. So track is going to use our h increby. And let's see. Let me.
Do you want it to docs?
Yeah, is it Safari?
Yeah, Safari.
Cool. All right, increments the number stored at field and the hash stored at key. So yeah, so okay, I guess the key, I guess in our case could just be the feature name. Maybe we want to we might want to prefix it with something just to make it clear that it's a part of this usage tracker class. But and then the field can just be the account ID.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for now, it's fine to just do feature name. But
yeah,
I'm going to put another to do in here just because. It's a habit that I have when I have like a class that uses Redis in a particular way specifically for that class. I'll give it a prefix just so like if I'm looking at my Redis keys or if I'm scanning my Redis keys, I can narrow it down to just the keys used by that class.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
All right, we need a counts method. And it's no longer an adder reader. Let's get rid of that. Yeah, so counts. Let's go back to Safari. Okay, returns all field names. We don't want that. We probably want hget all, I guess, for this. Returns all fields and values. It's an array reply, so we'll need to.
Yeah, maybe we can check the Redis client documentation because it might just return a hash.
Yeah, I guess let's just do that and see how our test fails.
Yeah.
Is it hget all? Is that right? Hget all.
I think that should work.
Oh, we're not. We're going to need to clear out the Redis between test runs,
That's a good point. Yeah.
and we're going to need to convert those values into numbers.
Yep.
Do you have any other tests that have to do any Redis cleanup or anything?
Not right now. I think there's nothing in there that's doing any cleanup just yet.
Yeah. I mean, what I'll actually do is I'll actually do flush DB in my tests, but that's obviously a sledgehammer. And if you have anything in Redis that you don't want clobbered, that would be a bad idea.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, good enough for now, I guess. I mean, it's only the test environment, so it's not that big of a problem.
Yeah. I mean, is your test environment actually using a different Redis database than your development environment?
That's a good question. Probably not, but it's not
Still
a big
doesn't
deal.
matter.
Still doesn't matter. I think the only thing in that particular Redis instance, actually, yeah, I think it's just the feature flags from Flipper. Yeah, I think so. But yeah, I mean, we can find a proper solution later. Let's just flash for now. Do you want me to do this?
I'll do the changing the values into numbers, and then you can do the Redis
Sure.
cleanup part. And you're welcome to dive into that while the test is running.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
I should do it. Cool. We got numbers.
Looks like this might pass once this change is picked up.
Yeah, I think so.
Yay. Cool. I mean, this basically does the trick if you want to just keep it simple.
Yeah, I mean, start with this and then iterate on it. Do we know if anybody's watching?
I think we have 3 people watching. Yeah. Hello, 3 people. But no comments or anything. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'd pulled up the YouTube video, but I didn't see anything in chat, so I wasn't sure if anybody was there. Whoops. That's switch my command tab back to mine.
Yeah, be super careful about opening the YouTube video while you're streaming, because that will just end in weirdness. I did that once, not recommended.
I would think that it wouldn't matter on my side.
Probably not, yeah.
but I'm actually not sure because I think that might have been when I crashed Tuple the first time. I think it might have been when I initially pulled up the YouTube video.
It noticed that it's watching itself and then it crashed.
I don't know.
So now that we have this basic tracker in place, let's check if we can add a test to this part.
That's a good point. I was ready to ship it. I totally forgot that we
it actually has to do something.
Test the user model. Yeah.
Okay. Let's just add a new section in here. It should track validation errors on yeah, okay. So we want to create a new user. I actually just build it. So that should test. Yeah, this should work, I guess. Or it shouldn't work because it's not implemented, but
I thought you did implement it.
I think I deleted it because we're just messing around back then. But let me just quickly do this again. How do you feel about tap?
Yeah, as long as it's not like a really long block inside of it, I'm good with tap.
So I only have one validation, so it's probably fine to just assume.
Yeah, especially since this is a temporary thing. Maybe it's a temporary thing. I don't know.
Probably not. No, I think it should very much be a temporary thing, but we'll see. Okay, yeah, does that make sense? Yeah, it's probably because it's not saved. So I feel like half of the stream is waiting for the test to run.
Yeah. Kind of painful to have feedback loops this long.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, but I mean, I guess it's working if only we clean up Redis. Yep. I want this in here, right? So
do you need Redis.new or will that work?
Yeah, Redis.new. So maybe the next thing we can do, well, is either look into connection pooling, which would be interesting because I've used connection pooling, but I've never set it up myself. Or we figure out a nicer way to do the reset, just something like just delete all keys with a prefix or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Before we do that, one like little thing that I would recommend is so right now this string is sort of spread across a couple places. We've got it in our spec here, and we've got it in the user model. And when you decide you want to query this data, you'll need to use this again. So I wonder about just maybe making a convenience method in your user model that just a usage tracker method that is just this piece. Basically just keeps that magic string in one place. So you can just say, usage tracker track, usage tracker counts.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think I'm fine with keeping it like this because it's just temporary.
Yep. Sure.
And this particular usage tracker is very local to this. Well, to exactly this thing right here. Like there's nothing. We're not using this anywhere else but here and in the test. But I mean, I'm fine with duplicating a little bit of stuff in the test, I guess.
Cool. Totally fine. Then I guess let's look at the connection pooling.
How do you write a test for that?
Oh my gosh, I've never. Yeah, I've definitely never even attempted to write tests for that.
Okay, fair enough. I guess it's an implementation detail, so it's fine if we just do it without a test.
We've got tests that exercise Redis, So as long as the connection pool doesn't break Redis, we're at least mostly okay.
Fair.
You
Yeah.
haven't made anything worse. But yeah, so the reason that I would want to consider a connection pool here, well, I guess in this case, like you said, this API endpoint gets hit pretty hard. Now, obviously, hopefully it's going to be an extreme minority of those calls that actually end up here tracking this usage. So maybe it's less of an issue. But like if this were something that were to get hit hundreds of times per second, you wouldn't want to establish a new Redis connection every single time. For one thing, it's going to skyrocket the number of Redis connections that you've got, but more than that, it's just the work to establish that connection instead of having a pool of already established connections to use. So what I usually do is more like an application level connection pool that I set up in an initializer, and then in different models where I'm working with Redis, I'll do something like I've never really found like an API that I'm happy with, but I think I hook into like the Rails namespace, and I do like Rails .redis, and instead of that returning a Redis instance, it expects a block.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And then you're working with a checked out Redis connection.
Yeah, let me take over real quick. I just want to see where I'm using Redis new. Nowhere. Nice.
Huh. What about Redis current? Are you using Redis current anywhere?
Oh, wait. Maybe get rid of the filter, yeah. All right, I remember what I'm using. Yeah, so I have in production we use two Redis instances. One is for Sidekick only, and the other one is currently, I think it's storing Flipper flags and the Rails cache. So that's what I'm using it for right now. Let me actually check. Yeah, okay. In here, so I'm using the Redis cache store method, and that probably creates a new connection. Just a thought. Do you think it's an option to, instead of using Redis directly, use Rails cache store for this? I'm not entirely sure if it has a hash-like interface for stuff like this.
I mean, it has a hash-like interface, but it doesn't have like all the methods that Redis does. But I think it has methods to get to the underlying storage mechanism as well, if you want to just get the Redis connection out of that. But
yeah,
do you know when you're using a Redis database for Flipper flags and Rails cache, do you have any idea what your eviction policy is on that Redis database?
I think there's no eviction set right now.
Okay. Which is good because you've got Flipper flags in there, and you wouldn't want those to be evicted. But typically I think you would want your Rails cache to be in a Redis database with an eviction policy, so that you can just throw things in there and
not worry
just
about
knowing
it.
that the oldest or least used stuff is going to get evicted. But as long as you've got no eviction on there, we'd be safe to use it for for this, but I guess I would worry that down the road, if you decided, no, we're going to move our cache store to a Redis database that does have an eviction policy.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
It's
I guess
probably
I would operate under the assumption that the cache store is
yeah.
what do you call it? Data that can disappear, volatile data.
Yeah, volatile data. Yeah. I think we should let's implement something like this just in this particular class, and then like if I end up using it elsewhere, then I can move it elsewhere. But for now, let's assume that we're the only one using that Redis connection, and
I guess, so to do it just local to this class, maybe it makes sense just within this class just to have like a method called so this, I guess that would be, up here we would do something like that. What do you think of this API for this class?
Yeah, I think that works.
I'll leave the formatting for you.
I can, let me just quickly fix that. You probably get rid of this one, right? So
yeah.
Does it have to be a class method though?
Well, here, so with Redis doesn't need to be a class method, but the connection pool itself is going to need to be stored at the class level. We could do that with a class instance, with a class variable. We could do that with a Rails catter accessor, class attribute. I don't know, all these options that I can never remember the differences between
I have to look them up, each and every one again.
To keep it simple for right now, let's just roll with a class variable.
Okay. I rarely use those, so it's exciting.
Yeah, I do too, actually. But they're easy to get going with. All right, I'm gonna bounce over to my own code to remind myself how to set up a connection pool.
I believe it's some. Whoops. I believe it's something like this.
Yeah. Perfect.
This should just work, I guess.
Yeah, unless we need to require connection pool. I'm not sure if we do or not, but we'll find out.
I guess as Sidekick's already loaded, it should be good. But yeah, it makes sense to make it more explicit.
Yeah, I would think. think I'm usually setting mine up in an initializer, which is maybe that's why I need to require it, or maybe I don't. I don't know.
Regardless, it's good practice to require the stuff you're intending to use. Hi, it's still working. Nice. So now, here's a tough question. We're lazy initializing the pool class variable at this stage. Is this thread safe?
I mean, the pool's going to be shared across threads, which is good. I would think we would want it to be.
But the lazy initialize might be a problem.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
Because, I mean, the extreme case is like 2 threads at the same time. Almost at the same time, notice that pool isn't initialized and each set up their own connection pool assigning. I mean, worst case, we end up with an assigned connection pool and a second one that isn't used anymore.
Sure. But if it's as easy as just wrapping that in a mutex, then it's probably worth doing. Just, I mean, if nothing else, it's going to communicate to yourself and other developers on your team later that, hey, we thought about this. Otherwise, somebody's going to come across this and have this same discussion with themselves.
Yeah. A mutex would probably work, but can we just go and do this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, why not?
Because I feel like, I mean, as I said, like I'm not using class variables that much, but I feel like this would only execute this on like basically boot up once.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, it's less code. It's very easy to read, and there's like, even if you never end up calling with Redis, like, so you've created a connection pool that didn't get used. So you've got 5 Redis connections that are just wasted, but Redis connections are cheap, so who cares?
And also, is it eagerly creating those connections?
No, actually, you're right. It's going to lazily create those connections. So yeah, there's really no harm in creating that pool right away.
Okay, yeah, that just works then, I guess.
Whenever, to be honest, like whenever it comes to any of this Redis stuff or connection pool stuff, I always just look at the Sidekick source and do whatever Mike does there.
Yeah. That's like probably the right call for almost everything. Yeah. Do you just want to do that and check out what Mike's doing there? Just learn from the concurrency
we
master?
can, yeah. I mean, I don't think we need to change this, but yeah,
just for educational purposes. So there's a Sidekick Redis connection create method that returns a connection pool. Where is that used?
Wow, I had no idea you could do that.
Do what?
That GitHub would show you all the references for that class.
Oh yeah, that's a nice feature. I mean, it's not super smart, so it will pick up stuff with the same name, but actually a different method, but it's super useful to quickly move around. So interestingly, he's just using this, and it doesn't seem to be a problem. So class instance variable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's probably not a problem when you are sure that before any threads are available, you at least call this method once. So, or maybe we're totally overthinking this.
I think we're probably overthinking it, but that's okay. I think it's interesting to see how he's implemented it, but obviously he has a lot more considerations to keep in mind, since this is, a library used by thousands and thousands of applications.
So the other part I'm not entirely sure about is what's a good pool size to set? And I feel like you did perfect one to talk about this.
Yeah, so for me, I would probably use my Rails max threads. Oh yeah, exactly like he's doing here. I would use my Rails max threads environment variable, because that's going to make sure that I've got at least enough Redis connections for each thread. So if each thread is trying to use this class at the same time and interact with Redis at the same time, they can. Nobody's waiting on each other.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's just do the same thing, I guess.
Yeah.
And I see he's using timeout 1, so... Or actually, timeout, yeah, pool timeout, yeah, so, okay. Yeah, I like it. This is a good starting point for this particular thing. So Robocop says we shouldn't use class variables, but
does it say why?
For now.
Does it link to like anything that would tell us why it's a bad thing?
As usual, probably not.
Bummer. Yeah, like I feel like class variables are dangerous in the way that they get handled by subclasses is maybe not obvious.
Yeah.
You're not using any inheritance here, so I feel like it doesn't matter as much, but we can...
Yeah, I think that's the argument in here. Nasty behavior in inheritance.
Ooh, nasty.
Well, in that case... I guess it's still complaining about something, but maybe that's just because everything's super slow and hasn't run again. Oh, it probably complains about the name.
Oh, wow. All right. Hadn't seen that one before, but yeah, it makes sense. Still complaining? Or it's timing out, right? You probably don't have Rails max threads set in your development environment, so you need to give it a default value, I guess.
I'm once again typing blind. Yeah, I was confused for a moment there. Nice. Okay, this looks good. I think the only other to do is come up with a good key prefix.
That is a brilliant prefix.
Taking suggestions here, but this feels like it's the obvious one.
Yep. That is absolutely what I would use.
Nice. Tests are still passing. So I guess that's it. Anything else we should probably do, or I feel like
the only other thing
enough.
is if you were uncomfortable with doing FlushDB, if you wanted to be a bit more targeted with the.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Let's do that at one as well, and then we're good. I was thinking that something like.
Yeah.
The big question is, what do we use? Isn't there something, because we have to prefix, isn't there something that deletes all keys with that prefix?
I don't know. So getting all keys with a particular pattern you can do with the keys method, which is slow, but you wouldn't want to use it in production with a massive Redis database, but we don't care in test. So we could use that to get all the keys and then just iterate over those and delete them. I'm not sure if there's one that lets you delete in bulk based on a pattern. Yeah, okay, well, this will let us remove multiple keys, just not based on a pattern. So yeah, this combined with keys, do what we want. Oh, actually, keys is going to return us does it return us the values?
I think it
returns us the actual keys. Yeah, you're right.
So I guess we want to do keys. I
think you need a star after your colon.
All right, yeah. I guess probably like does work like this.
I would have thought you wanted. I would have thought you wanted the asterisk like you had, but
because it doesn't expect an array, probably, right?
I wouldn't think. Yeah.
Is there a proper documentation?
I think there's a link to the RDoc up top. Looks like either way would have worked.
Yeah, that's how I'm reading this as well. So maybe let's do it like this. You probably want to do this everywhere, right? So
I like that pattern of creating a separate spec support file for each, concern, rather than,
yeah, it makes it
into
easier to manage down the road.
yeah. Looks good.
This should do the trick. I think we're done.
I think we're done. I love having little like single purpose classes like this that use Redis. I've got a few of them to do like locking and things like that. I'm a big fan. Redis is fun.
Yeah, Redis is quite cool. What, like you mentioned locking, any other use cases you use little utility classes like this?
Locking and throttling are the two specific things. Like I've got like for Rails autoscale, if autoscaling fails for whatever reason, if it's a reason that the customer can fix, like maybe they haven't confirmed their credit card on file, or they're running like hobby dynos or something like that, I don't want to send them that email like 100 times. So I'll throttle it to once a day. And Redis is a nice, easy way to do that. I just have a throttler class that you can pass with a key and a duration. So those errors, I just throttle the notifications with that.
Yeah, that's a good use case. What I recently, I think sometime last year, started using for locking is Postgres advisory logs. And what's nice about them, you can like there are like, I don't know, 8 or so different methods, and you can tie them to a database transaction, so they will release when the database transaction is finished. So for stuff that's locking because it's the database or like data related, that's pretty handy.
And then you can have other code that depends on that lock, so that it basically it. So what would be an example where you would use that?
For example, when we recalculate segments in Userlist, we basically acquire an advisory log for that particular segment ID, and just like recalculating the segment might take 20 minutes or so, and during that time, like all other Sidekick jobs that would trigger the same job or execute the same job will try to acquire that particular log, fail, and then just quit. But if for some reason, I don't know, something goes horribly wrong in that particular case and the job crashes, that database transaction will also stop, and that will also release the log again. So I don't have to basically do any work on cleaning up the logs, because once the database transaction fails, it's gone.
That's nice. Yeah, that's really cool.
It's code looks a little bit crazy, but it works really well. Cool. I think, yeah. Oh, we have a red test. Well, I figured that one out later on because I feel like this will run for a while. Actually, what is this running? That's not just the 2 tests, is it?
Is it because you changed the spec support file? It needs to run everything?
Yeah, that's what I'm worrying about. I think that might be the case, because that's so many tests. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'll figure it out later today.
Cool.
This was a lot of fun. I think we got something done, and I can say for sure that's a better solution than what I'd implemented, because I had totally forgotten about the connection pool. I'd probably learned that I need one when it's in production, but this way it's already taken care of, so that's great.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for inviting me to join you here. I had fun as well.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And everyone watching, hope you had some fun as well. Maybe you can use this thing or two. And the plan is to resume those weekly live streams from now on. So see you next Thursday. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye, everybody.